Well, now
That
we have
might be
ChatGPT.
Have you been talking? Do you do a lot of work with those things?
Yeah,
Yeah.
all three of them. I bounce
That's great.
all the responses off of all three to make sure I got something good.
Do you mean like social media responses or something like that?
No, I say, hey, Grok, this is what ChatGPT said. What do you think?
Oh,
Hey,
I see.
DeepSpeak, what do you think?
Yeah. What kinds of things do you ask it about? Either one of
Everything.
them.
You can take
Okay.
screenshots of the page now and just dump it in and say, what do you think of my email?
Yeah. Oh, nice. Okay, so you use it for a lot of like deliverables in business. Sounds
Everything.
like.
Everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I got a friend, he worries sometimes that it's too nice to him. So he'll ask it, what do you think of this argument? And it'll be, that's a very good argument, you know? So he's a little worried. I don't know what you think about that.
No, I swear at my ChatGPT and
Oh, what I
Grok.
mean is it nice back? Is it too nice to you? You know, does it ever disagree
No,
with
it swears back at me.
Yeah.
Seriously. It matches.
You want to know something fun is a friend did this and posted it. Ask one of your chat clients, ask it what it thinks your personality type is, and specifically ask it what it thinks, you know, if you find this fun, ask it what it thinks your Myers-Briggs is and your Enneagram or any other thing, Big Five, any other test you like, but ask it what it thinks of you. And it's often kind of accurate. It's kind of neat. They're getting to be like people. Oh, and the new thing is, a friend of mine told me this week. She said, I told her about a problem I was having, and it said, "Been there, I feel you." And she's like, "This thing is getting way too personable." And I don't know if you've noticed stuff like that yet.
It's working on it. I think it gets pretty interesting when you have them all check up on each other.
That is a good.
I think you get more more bang for your buck.
I'll tell you, I prefer the Google search answers. That's the only AI I really use, and the reason is they put their citations right in the answer, and they're accurate. And I can't find any other one that does that. So if Google says yes, Stanford scientists found that this increased 33%, you can click it, and it goes right to where it is. And when I've done that in the past with others, it either can't do that or it sends me to the wrong place. So,
hey, Radar, thanks for showing up.
Yeah, what's up?
Radar just popped in. He said he was waiting forever. I go, me too.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
We're throwing a party and we're the only ones that showed up.
Hey, dude. I got a question for Radar if he's available, if your guys are into that kind of thing.
Hey, Radar, are you available? Because we're into that kind of thing.
I'm navigating to the page so I can see these answers. Let me know if he responds. Okay, I'm loading.
Radar says, what's up?
Yeah. Well, Radar, I was just going to ask you, I have been appealing to people to try to treat their phenotype basically use Jay's methods. And I was just curious, had you tried that? Because that has definitely been the most impactful thing for people that I know, for myself, for others. And so I'm just curious if you'd gotten a chance to do that, to kind of type yourself and then look in the chart on Jay's papers. And you can actually just Google Gunkelman phenotypes. And the first answer that comes up should be, it won't be his paper because the paper is not free. So you'll have to hack that. Introduction to Phenotypes, QEGsupport.com is a pretty good explanation. And it tells you what to do. Because I got a sense that you're interested in creativity and things. And I mean, the research that I have read seems to support, you know, what Jay is doing there. So for it, the real one is cognitive flexibility was associated with lower frontal alpha, which I know that you were, I think I was just getting a sense you were interested in raising your frontal alpha. But yeah, if any of this is putting you on the spot and if that's too that's something that's you want to keep to yourself, etc., by all means. I just want to throw it out. I really think I get a sense that nobody is trying Jay's methods. I'll hear clinicians, even some of the ones that come on here, will talk about Jay's methods, but they don't use Jay's methods. They use what's called the arousal model, and they use Seburn's methods, and they use other things. To be honest with you, I can count on 2 fingers the number of people I know that are dedicated to Jay's methods. So
in the news, how about our guy RFK Jr. and autism and the food dyes?
I mean, it's just, again, somebody needs to show me a study showing that food dyes have, or anything has, a bigger effect than obesity. I have not seen that study. I highly doubt it, to be honest with you. I'm a little sympathetic in the sense that I do think we need to get a handle on this, because I do think it's increasing. Yeah, Radar, I'll tell you this. So what Jay said one time on the podcast, he said 95% of people could probably benefit from theta down frontally and SMR at the motor strip. SMR is actually known for side effects. ISNR put out a study that half of people are going to get side effects doing SMR. They're temporary. So that one's kind of hit or miss, but most people I know get a lot of mileage off of doing like a broadband inhibit up front, FC, without suppressing the SMR frequencies. So you inhibit everything but 12 to 15, let's say. So that's like the biggest bang for your buck. So yeah, let us know if you do try it. How do you say Radar says he's doing SMR? It sounds like it must be going okay, because he's mentioning he's doing SMR. He's not mentioning any side effects, etc. So that's good news. Oh,
Radar. Oh, wait.
He did not like frontal. Okay. Well, I hate to hear that. I'd be curious what you meant by felt horrible. I do have a friend that when she did it, it was very animating, and it reduced her sleep for several days. And it was mandated by her Jay had taken a look at her EG. Yeah. Sorry that it felt horrible. If you want to let us know, and obviously, I can't. Okay, fatigue. So I appreciate that. I'm sorry I gave you fatigue. One thing I want to mention is I got a sense from a friend of mine the other day that people think of neurofeedback, and this may not be you, Radar, but some people think of it as you're trying to get a session effect. You're trying to get, whoa, that is okay. Yeah, that's heavy duty. So definitely don't pursue this if it's giving you that much pushback. Sometimes I've heard Andrew Hill say, for instance, you got to sometimes figure out what, I think on his podcast, he said, what else is going on at that frequency range? He actually said on his Andrew Hill's recent podcast about alpha, Radar, he said that alpha tends to give people trouble when they want to reduce it, because it's like a rate limiter of the brain, let's say. But he says if you're having trouble, if alpha doesn't want to budge, find out what other frequencies are going wrong at that area. And sometimes when you resolve those, that you through suppression, that you can later affect the alpha. But yes, definitely don't do anything that makes you feel that uncomfortable. And I'm really sorry about that.
Well, always check with your primary care physician first.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. But when I meet with Jay and Marie and whoever shows up for the Thursday show, what is the question we want to ask them?
It sounds like, well, the thing is, Radar didn't have an EEG. So I think Jay's first answer is,
show me the raw data
based on the EEG. Yeah. But what Radar experienced was a frontal inhibit, and it gave him fatigue, and he says he couldn't even walk afterwards. So definitely that doesn't sound like the right protocol for Radar anytime soon. But yeah, feel free to throw that at him, fatigue from FZ. But I know that Jay's a big advocate of getting the EEG done first. Yeah, so Radar's worried. He says this, I'm glad I have equipment because practitioners, I'm quoting Radar here, regularly ruin people's lives and leave them with side effects.
Hold on, Radar. Yeah. Say your opinion.
When I said I couldn't walk, I mean I would crash after walking quickly. Yeah, I don't know if crash means your blood sugar or you kind of literally fall over, etc. But either way, very, very concerning, and I don't love that. That's, yeah. So Radar says that's a fact.
That's a fact.
So yeah, to kind of be the diplomat here between Pete and Radar on that one, if I'm sensing some disagreement, there are.
I'll send the attorneys your way, Radar.
There you go. Radar probably is aware, and if not, he could check. There are neurofeedback side effect groups on Facebook. I don't know if they can answer his question. There are Jay answers questions in the neurofeedback side effects group on Facebook. So there are some people who are trying to help others. I have a friend who will message people privately and try to guide their treatment if he knows they've had side effects. That's no pressure to do that. Yeah, so he's modding a Discord server. So Radar must be, I'm joking if you're not, but Radar might be Gen Z. Oh, Radar got banned. I'm sorry you got banned from that group, Radar. But yeah, I think it's I had an MD friend. It is very unfortunate when people get side effects.
Wait, hold on. What did Radar do? And now I'm intrigued.
Yeah, Radar, only if you're comfortable, you can say, what happened. Apologies that you got. Yeah. I was just going to say, yeah, what, Pete? Yeah. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying, did you start throwing around protocols and everybody freaked out and they said, all right, beat it?
Radar says, don't misunderstand me. I am pro neurofeedback. And we believe it, Radar, because I know
we are pro Radar.
Yeah, we're pro Radar. There you go. Well, listen, I don't know, what went wrong in that group. I do believe there are people that get side effects from neurofeedback. I have been in those groups. Obviously, if somebody knew the answer to every case, we wouldn't be here. So it's very sad. I will say I do find, it seems like the people in those groups, if I have to say, they've often done Z-score training. ILF is common, but Z-score is like the number one answer I get back. Loretta, Z-score. In talking with some clinician friends, and by the way, Radar, if I have a feeling that's not what you did, so this in no way applies to you. But a clinician friend said to mine, with Z-score, sometimes when people do Z-score, he worries that they're doing a ton of protocols at once. They come in and they get 10 things changed in one session, and then it's almost impossible to backtrack and even know what caused the problem. So I just want to put that out there. All right. Yeah, Radar says, someone told me, I think he says, I said that someone's side effects from NFB, he was saying that you could fix your side effects if you find the right protocol. And he said, if you get side effects months after training, it's probably unrelated. Yeah, those don't sound unreasonable, Radar. Yeah.
It depends.
Yeah, it depends. Sounds fair. So I will tell you, Radar, that Jay, when I've seen Jay in that group, I think I don't want to speak too close, but I think he agrees with you that often it was the training was not properly matched to the person, whatever, and I think Jay would probably say in the proper clinician, you might be able to make progress, but that's a shame. And I know that group can be very anti-NF. And so it's sort of maybe a surprise. Yeah. What'd you say, Pete?
Why are they anti?
Well, it's a group of people that have gotten side effects from neurofeedback. And to be fair with you, I mean, there are people coming in there, and I know at least one guy like this closely, and I trust him. I know him in real life. And he's like, ever since I did X protocol 2 years ago, I still feel dissociated. Numbness is I think numbness is usually the most common thing they report in that group. So, and as I said, a lot of them are doing, this is not to disparage people doing Z-score. I'm sure it in the right hands, it might be very good, but I find that a lot of them are doing Loretta Z-score protocols. I know Jay's not a huge fan of database approaches and of Loretta. He says the algorithm was not production ready, but I know there's debate about that. All these things have debate about. Yeah, but that's a shame. And I do know people, I will say this is all the more reason I think to have a skilled provider. I'm going to guess that Jay and Pete would say.
Pete doesn't say anything.
Pete doesn't say it smart, Pete.
Pete regurgitates.
I heard, gosh, I want to say it might have been Andrew Hill saying that you want to try to listen to the client. And so Gosh, yeah. On these Facebook groups and in Reddit, I will hear people say, "Yeah, every time I do neurofeedback, I get really anxious, and my clinician just says just to stick with it." You know, and I'm saying, "Well, how long do you stay anxious?" And they're like, "I don't even know because he has me do it every day." You know. So anyway, the point is, and people in those groups, they'll say you need to tell your clinician you're not comfortable, or this is, if they're making you feel bad, speak up, and clinicians hopefully will listen and at least adjust something.
No, the clinicians won't say anything in a group.
Yeah. Yeah, the clinician is not, what I'm saying is, yeah, you get it, but they're reporting back, well, my clinician says it's fine, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. And 2 months later, that person can't get out of bed because they've been doing this thing that makes them. So I have seen that happen. Provider quality varies, maybe, is the moral of the story. Okay. Radar says, the other day I got someone in my server got really bad dysautonomia. That's things like heart rate, sweating. It's sympathetic symptoms, usually anxiety. He says from using just a TENS unit on his gut. That's interesting. I didn't know you could. Yeah, sometimes people have a predisposition to mental illness and you have no way to know. You never know what's going to trigger someone's health spiral. I think that's true. That, you know, there's, if we could guarantee outcomes, it'd be a different world. And so, yeah, it's, and like Radar said, sometimes something else may be going on. Maybe it's a predisposition. I have a friend at Central Florida Biofeedback, Alex Sanchez. I think one of his phenotypes that he gets the most, he hears about the most side effects with, are if people have what's called transients, which I believe are sharp slow waves in the temples. And he says that stimulation technologies, where you're like TDCS and these TENS unit would be one, you're applying electricity to the body or brain. He says those in his opinion seem to really aggravate those. But you know, people can get side effects from pharmacological medication too. They can get I read an article recently, this week, people treating themselves with psychedelics, self-medicating with psychedelics is shooting way up. And as every time Jay mentions psychedelics, he says they're not for everyone. If you have history of psychosis, or if you have even family history of bipolar schizophrenia, or if you have beta spindles, or if you have subclinical epilepsy, that these are not the right medication for you or drug for you. And the problem is, because EEGs are not normal, a lot of people don't know that they have these things, unfortunately. But he says, I know Alex, good guy. Yeah, he is. He's very, and Alex is very up on Jay's methods as well.
Psychedelics are going to cause an epidemic of schizo. I don't know. I think people are going to be more chill.
I didn't see that comment yet. I see him here talking about marijuana triggering dissociation psychosis. So marijuana does increase schizophrenia and psychosis rates. They're seeing that right now if you just Google that. Jay says it's people with a bad phenotype should not, well, family history of psychosis too. But it's like a 4x uptick in the psychosis rate among youth that use cannabis. It's a big increase. And because nobody has their EEG, most people, they don't know that they may be at risk, you know? So yeah, I agree with you, Radar. You can never eliminate the risk. I will say to you, I have an MD friend who tried neurofeedback, and he's a big fan. And one of the things he said is, this is not to minimize anyone's side effects or pain, okay? But he does say, with biology, if something isn't having side effects, you almost wonder if it's doing anything at all, because your body is so complex. The idea that something could touch just one symptom is pretty rare. It's kind of unusual. And so he said, you know, at least if neurofeedback's causing side effects, which he's experienced, at least is doing something. Now, fortunately, most neurofeedback side effects are temporary. Jay likes to say the clinician, I think he can usually adjust. But yeah, thanks for the comments, Radar.
Anthony, give me I'm taking notes here. Give me an update.
Yeah.
What are we going to be asking about in tomorrow's show based on what we talked about so far? Nothing?
I guess Radar's talking about he had his own side effects. Maybe the whole topic of side effects. What about these people that are in these online groups that are claiming that they have had all these bad side effects? What might be accounting for that? Just like Jay says, certain patterns, if you take a psychedelic, now you're risking it. Are there certain patterns that are not suited to neurofeedback? What is the, because I've seen Jay in those side effect groups, and is maybe ask him, what does he see as the common, are there any common denominators of what's going wrong? You could even look at the group yourself, Pete, if you want to go to it.
Yeah, what is the group?
It's just Neurofeedback Side Effects on Facebook. I can maybe try to link you here.
Just put the link in here.
Yeah.
Because what I remember Jay saying is if there's a side effect of neurofeedback, that means it's real. It's not fake.
That's exactly what the MD, he's saying. It means it's doing something,
Yeah.
Which is the first thing people, Pete, the first few, I heard about neurofeedback 10 years ago, and I said, ooh, it seems sketchy to me. I don't know. Because we're not used to, you can just look at something and it's changing.
Radar saying the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I put it, Pete, in our comments. I'll try to put it in there. Sometimes my comments don't, yeah, it says I can't share that. Let me try on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm joining the group.
Yeah, feel free to poke around in there. If you want to search for Jay's name, I know he's been in there before. And I will tell you, whatever has happened, I do feel bad for some of these people because, if you talk to them, some of them, it really seems like they're going through something real. I mean, I know they are. And,
yeah.
But I will tell you, Radar, this is not every, I met a person in the Neurofeedback Side Effects group. They actually reached out to me because they saw something on Facebook I wrote or whatever. Come to find out, week to 2 weeks into talking with this person, they're microdosing psychedelics every day. And, I mentioned to them, maybe consider not taking the psychedelics anymore. Microdose is when you're not actually tripping, you're trying to take just enough to get some type of change in the brain that you think is therapeutic. Anyway, this person they couldn't even conceive of no, my microdosing is good. It's good. And I'm thinking, yeah, but you're not improving. So anyway, I met a friend of mine the other day admitted to me that they've been using nicotine gum for 4 years. So you don't even know, people are doing all kind of stuff that you don't even know they're doing. So, and they may not even be, I do think neurofeedback can have side effects, but it's complex. There may be other things, as Radar said, there could be some other things. Each case could be different. So, but yeah, interesting topic.
Well, autism and Radar has always talked about autism, and I don't know what your takes are on RFK Jr., but he's definitely, whether he's right or wrong, he's putting more awareness about it, and then showing when it started to show up in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah. Yeah, so let me go look when autism started. I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
Autism diagnosis rates. So here's where I'm a little sympathetic to what he's saying. I met actually a mom on Facebook messaged me because she saw one of my studies about neurofeedback and autism. And she was kind of upset, and she was like, no one is going to tell me that autism can be changed or fixed. This is just who I am. This is who my family is. And you talk to her more, and it's like, well, okay, I hear you. But, these neurofeedback studies seem to show that people are getting improvements to their social function at a minimum. And she said, me and my family have tried everything. She was very upset. She was obviously triggered. You are not allowed to tell me that anything works for autism because I don't believe you. So but I think there is a resistance to believe that autism could even be treated. Like my MD friend the other day, I showed him the neurofeedback meta study on autism. He said, "This is amazing." I said, "Why?" He goes, "There are no treatments for autism. The closest thing is occupational therapy." And I know parents that have put their kids in occupational therapy, and it feels like it's a crapshoot at best. The woman said she herself was diagnosed. You know, she does. Radar's asking me if the woman had Asperger's. She has, I imagine, high functioning autism because she's fairly articulate. I think they say Asperger's is no longer a term in use. Apparently, it's high functioning autism, and that represents like about 10% of autistic people, apparently. So yeah, I think that there is there's an attachment. There is a movement. This is very sensitive. I'm trying not to get in trouble, Pete, by saying something. I do get a sense that there are people who are starting to think of autism as an identity and just a different type, divergent. It's not necessarily worse or better. And I think there's some sense in which that's true. But I think if you ask some people, hey, if there was a pill or a magic trick or a neurofeedback that could help you, it could really actually change what you're experiencing, would you do it? And I think a lot of them actually would say yes. Radar says, come to the dark side. Yeah. Yeah, he says the people that say that tend to be mild. That could be true, Radar. Okay. Hida's here. She says,
Hida.
She says, my nephew has severe autism. I have been doing NF for the last 3 years. It does improve, but it takes time. Hida, I would be curious, is there a particular neurofeedback method that you're using? That might be interesting to maybe look, if it's been taking 3 years, maybe you try different methods. But I'm glad to hear that I'm speaking too quick. It sounds like you are getting some progress, but it's hard to change, you say. So yeah, let us know if you have a certain approach that you find is working or could work better. Yeah, so Radar says people with severely autistic children want to solve it. I don't have the data on that, but it makes sense if your child has special challenges that you hope one day that we could help them with that. Yeah, Radar's getting pretty opinionated, but he says they have Asperger's, which is not real autism. I will tell you, so Jay talks about Asperger's. He calls it high functioning autism. But what he says is people who have high functioning autism, they normally have alpha or other elevated brain waves at their T6 behind their right ear, temporoparietal, and that is associated with social functioning. And I think the original diagnosis for Asperger's, if you just go to the Asperger's wiki, it was doesn't see social cues and talks endlessly about their favorite hobby. That was literally the diagnosis by Dr. Asperger's. Those are the criteria. And I think those have been changed maybe a bit here. Okay. She says, I've tried Z-score and IS. I don't know if Z-score ISF, I think it is a thing. D-score, that's 3 things. Z-score ISF amplitude. The most effective was the 2 protocols Jay gave us, and Z-score surprisingly, and Lens for his speech. Okay, well, Hida, you certainly have, I admire you, or I praise you for how hard you've tried with your nephew. I think that speaks really well of you, and I'm glad that you've had some progress, and sorry it's not exactly where you want it. Radar says, yeah, sorry, Pete.
So I have Asperger's. Is that what you're saying, Radar?
Doesn't read social cues. Yeah, right. He's talking about masculinized. Yeah.
That too.
So Radar's, yeah. We're all tough men here. Okay, so Radar says some of the traits of Asperger's are just having a masculinized brain. So I will tell you, autism has been talked of in some circles as a form of hypermasculinism, and that's because it's associated with social deficits, specifically inability to put feelings into words, is commonly mentioned, and hyper focus on special things that don't involve people, like engineering, trains, blocks, programming. It runs the gamut. And those are sort of traditionally, again, we're speaking totally generalities statistically, but those are traditionally masculine. I will also tell people, radar, this, you can look this up. So autism is associated with elevated testosterone, significantly elevated testosterone in both men and women. Yeah, let's see. He does this rapid fire today. Okay, Hida says ISF was very hard. It was hard to figure out how he feels. Yeah, and so that is something that
Me
I think
too.
Sorry, Pete?
I just said me too.
Yeah, right. I mean, well, because you're a man, right? No, but that's the joke. But anyway, yeah, Hida, I've heard that if a child has any sort of communication deficit, that sometimes you maybe don't know how the treatment is affecting them, and I think that's very wise of you and sensitive. But you say that she says it has positive effects with the right protocols and persistent 100 sessions. Hida, I'm almost curious, is the protocol that Jay gave you to reduce subclinical epileptic events like SMR, high beta down? Because Jay says sometimes when you have epileptic seizures in the EEG, it can take like 100 sessions. And so keep with it. I applaud you for being here too. So yeah, so Radar says high IQ. Yeah, traits of Asperger's. Yeah, I think Dr. Asperger, who is he's a controversial character now. I think there might have been some, I could be totally wrong. I think there might have been some Nazi affinities there. But yeah, he did say, I think, that it's higher intelligence. Radar says he sees a problem with ILF and ISF. A lot of practitioners aren't very good at finding the ORF. I think that's the resonant frequency at some frequency. I have not done ILF or ISF, so I can't speak to that. She says, Hida says, yes, he has spikes. So it sounds like her nephew has the spikes of energy, the paroxysms or beta spindles, sometimes Jay says, that are associated with subclinical epileptic discharges. And that makes sense that they're sort of hard to correct. Hida, I almost wonder if you have tried, well, do whatever Jay tells you, but let me know if you've tried the temples just above the ears. Okay, Radar says the ORF is the ILF, ISF optimized reward response frequency. I'll let somebody schooled in ILF comment on Radar stuff. We don't have one today, but
I never heard of it before. Should I ask Jay about this, or is he going to give me a funny look?
Feel free. Honestly, feel free if well, with Hida's permission, obviously, to maybe bring up, what about children with autism that seem to be taking quite a long time to improve? And what about these epileptic discharges that take a long time? Maybe you could ask him that. One thing that Radar might like that's interesting that RFK should be worried about. Prenatal testosterone is associated with autism, I believe, in the studies, if you Google it. I know that significantly elevated testosterone is present in autistic individuals, children, male and female. Well, something to be aware of is obesity in women increases testosterone. If you have any friends that have the condition PCOS, which is associated with obesity, they also tend to have, not always, but they tend to have elevated testosterone. It's common. So what I'm getting at is we are seeing obese and overweight incidents go up in America drastically. And in principle, what that means is maternal testosterone is going up. And these studies seem to be saying that prenatal testosterone increases the risk of autism. So that is a connection that if you Google it, that is in the research, and it is being investigated, but it's never talked about. I'm the only person I've ever heard mention the connection between parental obesity and autism, or testosterone and autism. But if you Google it, you will find tons of papers on both these topics. Okay, so Hida says, yeah, she's talking about montages that Jay did with her. She says that at T4 and C4, he moves his jaws a lot. Well, anyway, Hida, best of luck to you. And if you have Jay's eyes on it and others, it sounds like you have the best possible eyes on it. So Radar said that makes sense, which I'm proud of, because I think that's the first time Radar has validated something I said on here. So I'm happy about that.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Radar.
Radar. Yeah. But yeah, so so let me know anything else you're thinking of, Pete. And
I'm not thinking of anything. We got these people in the room here that have questions. Hita and Radar, they're cranking it, and I wonder who the other two are.
oh, we got more in there. That's great. Yeah. Feel free to ask questions, guys. I will try to be as nice as possible.
We have no problem saying I don't know.
Yeah, and we should probably say that often. So more than I do at least. But yeah, on the autism thing, I'm tracking this obesity and autism connection, and in theory, parental obesity. And by the way, it applies to the guys too. If the dad is overweight, it will increase the risk of autism in the child. But anyway, this is just putting it out there, a theory. But if there is a connection, and I think there is, because I mean, I have a John Hopkins study showing a 4x incidence of autism in obese parents. In theory, wouldn't that mean Ozempic could help us with some of this autism? By the way, it's the same connection for ADHD. Obese parents tend to have more ADHD children. So if there is a causal connection, I think there's a chance that Ozempic and other drugs like it could help us with this. Well, anything that helps you lose weight in principle could help with this. So, and by the way, guys, I know, yeah, sorry, what'd you say, Pete?
I just say anything that gets rid of the cravings.
Yeah, so this is it. Yep, Jay likes to talk about the cravings for sure. That makes sense. The anterior cingulate, it's reward finding and exploration. So anyway, Radar says here, according to Dr. Nemechek, virtually all autistic children have SIBO, and SIBO, I think it's a little bit of I don't think it's like a formal medical diagnosis. It might be, but it refers to a bacterial overgrowth. It might be yeast in the gut, in the microbiome. Radar, I will tell you, and I'm open to this being what you're saying. I wanted to tell you two facts that sort of emphasize and help with this. Children who have autistic children, people diagnosed with autism, they frequently have gut abnormalities other than SIBO, like IBS and IBD, and those are more common medical diagnoses, and they're very correlated with autism. If you type in IBD or IBS and autism, you will get links. Yeah, he says it's bacterial overgrowth of the small intestine. So here's the thing, Radar. Guess what else is associated with gut abnormalities? It's lack of sleep. And guess who has horrible sleep issues on average? There are studies saying 80% of autistic people and children have trouble with their sleep. And remember, Jay says if you have, I think it's the posterior insula, if you have subclinical epileptic discharges there, you can have awful stomach issues, and autistic people complain of stomach issues. By the way, the epileptic discharges, just to bring all this finally, and then I'll get to Hita, epileptic discharges are one of Jay and Pineda's autism phenotypes. They are one of the 7, and they are known in some cases for causing stomach issues. I think they're also associated with sleep issues. So my point here is if someone can fix their sleep, they might be able to fix their gut. And to fix their sleep, it might help to do neurofeedback, to address those epileptic discharges, Radar. So feel free to try any of that. Here we have Hita, and Hita is saying, one thing I'd like to know is how to correct sensory processing. Yeah, Hita, sensory processing problems in autism. She's talking about how very often autistic people and children will complain that they are, the one I think of is more noise sensitive. Don't slam things. They often have misophonia, which is where you don't like to see other people chew or fidget. It's very associated. You don't like to hear them or see them do it. It's both. There's misophonia, you don't like to hear it, and there's misokinesia, which is where you don't like to see the fidgeting or the chewing. Anyway, Hita, what I've heard from, I think, Alex, and it's probably in the research as well, Alex of Central Florida Biofeedback is, the sensory processing is often associated with beta spindles at the back of the head, often at PZ or OZ. Now, obviously, Jay would tell you, contingent on an EEG. It's based on your EEG. But you did mention, I think your child has some of these spikes, and those spikes may be, or your nephew rather, those spikes could be accounting for the sensory. But it might also depend, Hita, on the location that they're at. I know you've had great eyes like Jay's on there, but maybe just on a stroke of luck one day you find working with your provider that maybe there's a location that wasn't being addressed fully, or that you could work on next. Just throwing it out there. But yeah, I haven't heard yet great things to help with sensory difficulties other than that, Hida.
Anthony, what's been on your mind? What questions do you have for me to put on the list for tomorrow?
Yeah, I did actually write down a question or two for Jay here. But I don't know. Yeah, she says his EEG is full of beta spindles. So that is associated with the sensitivity issues, at least that I have heard. The questions I got are real deep baseball for Jay about like
let's go deep baseball. What the hell?
Yeah. Well, how about this one? The main thing on my mind is a study came out this week on Neuroscience News, and I'll link it in the chat. I don't know if it'll come through on YouTube, but I just linked it. It said that the signs of dementia may start in people as young as 24 years old. And this was a study from, I can get you the university, but okay, it's Columbia University. So hopefully, Ivy League, whatever. And anyway, that is pretty crazy. Now, they used a blood test. But it sort of makes sense because there's nobody that gets, I don't want to say nobody, but most of us, when we get our EEG done, there are signs there of things starting to slow, some of those slow waves coming up. I mean, I haven't seen a friend that didn't have that yet. And that is a key dementia pattern. I think that might be one of the main dementia patterns. And so, so I think this is probably an important study. I'd be curious what Jay has to say about it. In other words, and by the way, the good news is, if we can use EEG to catch these dementia patterns in a young child or even anyone at any point in life, and we can treat that pattern and get rid of it, maybe we can forestall or delay or reverse dementia. I know Lisa Tartarin, I believe she focuses on Parkinson's, which is different, but it is still the brain breaking down. It's neurodegenerative. And so, and she knows the specifics there, but I don't know if you have somebody that's a dementia expert, but maybe Jay wants to talk about how's it even possible that dementia could be starting at age 24? And I sent you the study there. Yeah.
Dan Mouse Squash.
Yeah. Pete, Radar says that he's recommending for Hida to try a certain protocol. Hida, and always remember,
don't listen to us or anything that we put in here. We have no idea what we're doing.
Yeah, and that goes for me and everyone else. So, but yeah, it sounds like this protocol is by somebody named Dan Mouse and somebody named Pete Van Dalsen, who I personally haven't heard of, I don't think yet. But
I've been called Pete Van Douche.
Pete Van Douche. Maybe those are people for your show, Pete. I don't know. As long as we say his name right.
You're people for the show.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, so Radar here is smart. He's funny too. He says, disclaimer, I'm a person on the internet, not a doctor. Yeah, I just always want to be honest, I kind of like what Radar, well, it's a double-edged sword. As crazy as it sounds, if someone, actually Alex at Central Florida Biofeedback, there are certain times that he will start people on like a minute of a neurofeedback protocol. If he is worried about, if he sees one of those patterns that has side effects, like those transients, or if he sees somebody, some other phenotype, I don't remember them all, he will give them just a little dash of that protocol. He will not try to overdo it. So Hida, maybe you could remember that. I don't know who you're getting treated by, but you could, it's always safer if you do less of whatever you do. And I think even Seaburn, I heard Seaburn on your podcast, Pete, say, she goes, the most I ever do is 12 minutes is something I heard her say. And I even heard her say sometimes, she's like, sometimes I'll do it one time, so these things, ideally you don't need to, every situation is different. So Hida's situation, she may need to do it that many, but ideally you're not, you're not having to do it the rest of your life. but it's not the end of the world, I suppose, for many of us if we do, because it's not invasive at all, you know. So yeah.
So Anthony, let's close it out. Let's run down the things we're going to ask.
Yeah, maybe just ask Jay, you know, are side effects real? Are there a type of person that tends to have, is there a pattern in the brain that tends to create more EEG, neurofeedback side effects? If somebody thinks they're having side effects, what should they do? You know, do they need to go to a different provider? Do they need to quit? Is there a question they should ask their provider? I will tell you, Pete, if you go on these groups, I hear it a million times. Well, my provider said it was fine and that I should just keep going. And then they come back up, not every time, but I have seen them come back and they say, I stopped neurofeedback 2 months ago and I'm not feeling, I have the same side effect I got on day one that he said would go away, and it hasn't gone away yet. So if Jay knows how to get to the bottom of that, general strategies, I'm all for it. Radar says, are there people who can't tolerate any of it?
Interesting. All right. Radar, that's on the list for sure.
Radar says, I rarely train a site longer for 10 minutes often. I think that's smart. I mean, often too, that lets you know how it's treating you a lot of times, how it makes you feel. Since we're on the show here, I will say, Alex at Central Florida Biofeedback, I believe, Alex, I hope I don't misquote you, but I believe he says that the people who have trouble with SMR, or a big one is alpha down at T6 or alpha hypercoherence above 0.5, they have a lot of trouble with neurofeedback. And I know some individuals like that, and they've been to a lot of the big names, and unfortunately they have not made progress. They have not been able to do the neurofeedback without the side effects. The side effects are so uncomfortable that they have to stop. Yeah. Yes.
Radar and Hita, one last call for questions. What do you want me to ask Jay to develop content for the show for tomorrow? Anything?
That's good.
You can just answer in the comment here. We should have them on this side with the panels.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we miss anybody, pete@neuronoodle.com, send me an email. We love explaining things that we've explained 12 times before. That 12th time, that may be the key.
Yeah, sometimes we all need repetition, or what is it? Repetition is like the mother of skill, or practice makes perfect.
It's whatever the algorithm trips over.
Yeah. Radar's one question. Yeah, just the question about, are there people who can't tolerate any neurofeedback? So that's the one he's really set on.
Got you, Radar.
Yeah. So Hita says she likes to train 20 minutes because kid moves a lot. She says half the time is getting them to sit. Yeah, I feel for you, Hita. You're a good aunt, if you know, or depending. Yeah, there. So if I can say that. So sounds like you're very nice to your nephew. Yeah, Radar gets into, so this is something I do hear a lot, Pete, is that when a person is having neurofeedback side effects, and I myself, I've seen this several times, the clinician tells them, oh, you're releasing trauma. And I think it depends. As you said, I think maybe sometimes they're releasing trauma, and sometimes this just wasn't the protocol for them, or it wasn't based on their EEG. Because, you know, Jay uses EEGs, but I know there's a lot of providers that do not use the EEG. And maybe that works 97% of the time. But even if you just have 1%, you know, and there's thousands of people, who knows if it's millions that have done neurofeedback now, you're going to have a lot of side effects.
Well, Anthony, hey man, thanks for showing up. Hita, Radar, everybody, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Montages, how to choose the right montages for the protocol. It depends.
Yeah, that's the key, I guess, huh? That's where the sausage is made, how the sausage is made.
No, but that's a good question. I'm going to throw that on there.
It is. It is.
Well, I
Thank you
appreciate
for your time.
I appreciate everybody showing up, and it's just like showing up at the bar. Sometimes everybody shows up at once. Sometimes they trickle in, or they don't show up at all. But I try to always open up the door for the people coming in having questions.
He really
Anthony Ramos, thank you for showing up. You want to give a quick plug to your technology group on Facebook?
I mean, you can join Science and Technology Discoveries, and or you can join. I'm in pretty much all the Facebook groups, and I'll see you in there if you'd ever like to talk. And then I just want to thank, I enjoyed getting to know Radar and Hita a little bit more today. That was fun, and best of wishes on their treatment and their families.
Yeah, keep coming in every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Central.
Please, yeah.
7 p.m. Eastern. Sorry, Anthony. All right, go to bed, Anthony.
You too, man. All right, we appreciate it.
All right, bye-bye.
I'll see you again. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Radar. Bye, Hita, and whoever the other people are.